Good afternoon. Welcome to Project Review Committee for October 4th, 2023. We're going to go ahead and start today's meeting at 1:33 p.m. Oh, we got Javier.
I'm so good, Javier.
I'm going to go ahead and do roll call here from staff. My name, Oscar Cepeda, the Associate Planner within the Community Development Department. We're also joined by Jeff O'Neill, our City Planner. We're also joined by Rocio Mejia, our Assistant Planner. We're also joined by Jason Reidenauer, the Assistant City Manager. We're also joined by Javier Sanchez, our Engineering and Project Management Director. We're also joined by Michael Knight, our Public Works Director. We're joined by Clayton Dignam, our Fire Marshal. We're also joined by James Wickersham, our Chief Building Official. We're also joined by Brianna Spry, our Field Services Refuse Superintendent. We're also joined by Robert Alvarez, our Field Services Manager. We're also joined by Mark Acevedo from our Police Department Lieutenant. We're also joined by Sarah Torres, our representative with the Engineering Division. I believe that is all from staff.
Dominic Bartow, Assistant Police Chief.
Oh, sorry, Dominic.
It's all right.
And also Fabian with our Economic Development Department. Thank you for joining us. With that, I'm going to go ahead and open oral communications. This is the opportunity for members of the public to address the committee on any matter pertaining to project review.
I just got a question. I ask this question every time. Are we going to allow questions later? Because I don't know what my question is going to be until I hear the presentation. Is there an answer? I guess not. All right. For the record.
Hi, I just wanted to say I'm Mike Ballas with Lower Tule and Poplar Water Company, just here in attendance.
Thank you. Welcome. Are there any other comments from the members of the public?
No, Oscar, I guess I want to jump in real quick and answer the question that was asked. I mean, the purpose of this meeting is not really to have a public engagement about the project. It's to provide the applicants with information about how they need to proceed. So while, of course, the public is invited to the meeting, it's not really the time or place to provide public input. That's why we have the public hearings that follow noticing procedures. So realistically, the comment portion at the beginning is just to ask questions about project review in general, as opposed to providing input on specific projects. When we get to the specific projects, the intent again is really just for staff and the applicant to engage on what the requirements for the project will be, and the public participation, questioning, and direct involvement is really better suited for the noticed public hearings.
At the risk of correcting you, that's not the way public meetings work. If it was just to tell me what a PRC meeting was, you could just put it in the paper. So I thank you for your input, but I think you need to do some research on open meeting laws. If this is an open meeting, I absolutely can ask comments, and I can ask a lot of questions right now. If you don't want to respond to them, you don't have to, but please don't tell me to shut up.
I don't believe I said that.
Yes, you did.
Duly noted.
Thank you. Any other comments from our public, from our members of our public? Thank you. I'm gonna go ahead and close oral communications. For today's project review committee agenda, we do have 3 items on the agenda. We'll go ahead and start with item number 1, which is project review committee number 2023-035. The applicant is proposing a preliminary tentative subdivision map to subdivide the existing 9.29 plus or minus acre property into a total of 28 parcels with the remainder. The applicant is proposing the development of single-family residential project on each parcel. The subject site is located on the northwest corner of Indiana Street and the Poplar Ditch on APN 268-100-005. The property is in the RS2 zone district, which is our low-density residential, and has a general plan land use of low-density residential. So the preliminary comments from planning on the application would be processing the tentative subdivision map. There are fees associated with the tentative map, which is $3,004, and there is a plus lot fee of $39. Once the map is final, there are fees associated with the final map of $1,672, plus a per lot fee of $40. The project will require an environmental assessment, depending on the environmental coordinator's preliminary review. We'll be able to provide that information to the applicant as far as what level of environmental review the project would be required. As far as the cost for the preparation of the environmental document, the cost is the consultant cost plus 10% for administration and also 10% for contingency fees. There will be also filing fees with the Department of Fish and Game filing, which will be required and will be based on the level of environmental review. Based off the map itself, we would just to point out that you do have a few reverse corner lots. For example, lot 17 and 18. Also, lot 25. Those lots do have a reverse street side setback of minimum 12 feet. Also, the development of the lots shall comply with section 20104, which is our residential single-family development standard.
No, that 12 feet, that's to the fence?
Correct.
Okay,
Also the building.
okay, so it's the building from, I'm sorry, the building from the property line, that's what it is, okay.
Other than that, again, complying with our Series 400 for land divisions. The process, also chapter 407, which outlines dedication, reservations, and improvements. Other comments are just pretty much standard for the development of those properties. That's gonna be our comments from planning. Thank you. Next, with our engineering division with Javier.
All right, thanks, Oscar. For engineering, just have a few comments. Let me see. One is that they're at Wisconsin. The bulb needs to be a full bulb just to provide a proper turnaround for fire and refuse. So unfortunately, that will mean it'll encroach into lots 19 and 20 more than it does already. As part of that, we also need to maintain that landscape strip around the bulb. And so that sidewalk would still need to stay offset from the curb and gutter. Let me see. As far as the flood zone, where you show that designation there, it's not that buildings prohibited in it, but with it being flood zone A with no base flood elevation established, we'll need to meet certain criteria to have those be buildable. It may be worth looking into the FEMA requirements a little bit more just to make sure that no analysis is required more than what our local floodplain ordinance states. Again,
Javier, would that be specifically only to lots 20 and 28?
20 and 28, unless where it encroaches slightly and 1, 27, 23, 22, and 19, unless there's a structure built within that floodplain.
Understand?
Yeah, but for sure, there's no way of getting around it on 20 and 28.
Thanks.
Let's see. And then on Indiana, we do see that I'm assuming there's a block wall proposed along the Indiana lots, right?
Correct.
Our development ordinance requires that there be separation between the back of walk and a wall. Typically, we've done 10-foot landscape easements. But I need to discuss that a little bit further with planning as far as if there's variance on that. Because that will have an effect on the depth of those lots. And potentially the buildability of lot 5. But otherwise, the cross section looks good on Indiana. Even though the circulation element shows a major arterial continuing north of Gibbons, it's just with the connection across the 190 not happening, the demand for a major roadway isn't necessary. So this will just be like a standard local collector instead. Which you complied with the 60-foot right of way you show. So again, the only thing we got to talk about a little bit more, and we'll provide direction in the comments, is the necessary landscape easement. And besides that, Public Works was going to talk about the an easement line from the ditch to the pond. So that's all for engineering.
Javier, a little confused. If Indiana's not a higher density or classified street, and it's actually with and your acceptance and a collector width, then why is the wall even going to be a requirement?
It applies to both arterials and collectors.
Okay.
The landscape requirement, that landscape separation between a back of walk and a wall.
Thanks.
It doesn't apply to local roads, residential roads, right, Javier?
Correct. Well, it does. The development ordinance just states that when there's a condition of a back a walk to a hard edge like a fence, that there's a requirement to maintain a minimum of 5 feet separation. What that direction was made from council so that we don't end up with a condition like you see on Westwood from Henderson to Morton, where it's that it is a wider walkway, but then it's just that wall, and it just gives it that cold feeling. It's not the aesthetics that the general plan intends to have.
What
So,
if, what if we were to maybe do like a wider sidewalk adjacent to the curb and leave maybe a narrower, maybe a 4-foot landscape area up against the block wall with a 6-foot sidewalk?
adjacent to the curb,
Yes, correct.
right? And so we're stuck in the middle there because the general plan's vision is also not to have adjacent sidewalks. There's again, the aesthetics that it's after is and I know I'm straining the planning, so jump in, Oscar, if I'm misstating something. The landscape strip behind the curb, an offset sidewalk, you know, besides the aesthetics, it also provides a better buffer for safety, so
Yeah.
that people aren't walking right along the road. It creates that separation, and then the landscape strip behind them, just to enhance the pedestrian experience.
Thanks, Javier.
Thank you, Javier.
You're welcome.
With that, we'll continue with our Public Works Director, with Michael.
Thank you, Oscar. I know we've had some tentative discussions in regards to the alignment of the property line adjacent to the ponding basin there to the north of the proposed development. We'll need to look at that. I'm sure you guys have already had that surveyed, Tom, and we can go through and what that property acquisition looks like for that right of way for the existing pond. And then there's been discussion as it relates to the current delivery mechanism, the turnout from the poplar ditch that goes into that ponding basin that feeds that. The hopes in previous discussions of projects proposed in this area would be, as the storm drain is developed for this property, it would turn out and deposit into that ponding basin. Anything beyond the service of the subdivision would be reimbursable cost to extend that to restore the connection to the poplar ditch. So that's been discussed under previous proposed plans and would be the same condition under this development.
Are we allowed to use the Indiana Street storm drain that's existing out there? If I put some catch basins and catch everything off of Myrtle and put it out there?
The proposed alignment would be off of Wisconsin.
Yeah, I'm gonna possibly use catch basins, tie into the Wisconsin pipe that's gonna be put in there for our runoff, but I also want to use Indiana as well.
Yeah, that would be acceptable.
Okay.
So there's still a little bit more on the plan as we move through this, but from the if you could go back to the plan, Oscar, please. So as you see, I'm assuming your last connection point to that basin would be off of Pine Oak.
Yeah, correct.
So the extension
That's for the Wisconsin side.
Correct. So to maintain that connection point that has been a service to that basin, we would maintain the connection down Wisconsin to reconnect back to the poplar ditch.
Right. Okay.
And that's probably the most of my comments at this time.
Thank you, Michael. Next, with our fire department, with Clayton.
The easy ones are basically the fire hydrant spacing, 500 feet for residential, and then 300 for multifamily, commercial, or mixed-use projects. No structure shall be greater than 400 feet from a hydrant as the hose lays, and maintain the 2 points of ingress and egress. Now, the more difficult stuff on here is these flag lots are difficult for us to basically police access the whole 9 yards, because we're dealing with human behavior. So I have a lot of comments, but just to kind of narrow it down, if this pathway exceeds 150 feet, there has to be a required fire department turnaround. We have to be able to get within 150 feet of the rear wall, halfway basically of the rear wall, as the hose would lay. So for example, if a fire truck came here and the house was built right here, as long as we measured, 150 feet to that structure, then this doesn't require the turnaround, but this is still required to be a fire lane. It's required to be marked as such. And so with something like this, we would want that kind of recorded, right? Because they need to be maintained. They need to know that we can summarily abate, cars that are parked there at midnight, for example, at the vehicle or the property owner's expense. So those are difficult. There's a lot of comments in here, but essentially that's what that is all saying. And again, we don't really know that until we start seeing the proposals for the development of the lots. But I want you to know that as a developer, that there's going to be some issues with regard to that as it moves forward. So.
Well, turnaround is, but isn't kind of.
It depends on the layout and it depends on the distance.
The
That,
houses or the.
for example, you'll see one of the proposals later today where they've found a way to make that right at the 150-foot mark that doesn't require that. We still have that 150 from that to get around the building, but their driveway extends beyond that. That fire lane actually ends at a certain point. So, but, and so that's what I'm saying is you'll see an example of that, but should that not be the case, they would have to then put in a required turnaround.
Okay.
Got it. Thanks.
Thank you. Next with our building division with James.
No comment.
Thank you, James. Next, with our field services manager, Robert.
No comment, Oscar.
Thank you. Next with Brianna.
No comments.
Thank you. Next with our police department with Mark.
No comments from the police department.
Thank you. I believe that's all from staff. Refuse? Yeah, they said no comments.
On the refuse, the cans that come out,
Yeah,
I've had in places where they've wanted us to mark where the cans are gonna be. You guys are okay with having them put out front, correct? Because they won't be driving up in there.
would you be able to answer that, Brianna? Yes.
Yeah, just as long as they're out on the road. The trucks are not going to be driving onto those lots.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, just to chime in with that a little bit, Oscar, just under the proposed layout, just know, it's going to be a challenge because these lots in the back, like on lot 11 and 12, they're going to have to bring their cans out and sit them in front of, lot 12. And depending on how those are configured with driveway approaches and parking on the street, those are going to be issues with residents as we go to serve them. So it doesn't necessarily stop anything from moving forward, but it will be a challenge with the residents, either their can being missed because of being blocked or too close together, or those will be challenges that we'll face with the layout as it exists.
Well, on those flag lots, are we allowed to do the one single drive approach? Or do we do a separate drive approach for each lot?
Here. Hello.
From my standpoint, as far as fire is concerned, I need to have a minimum 20-foot access to get to the structures. I don't know what the city's going to require, but if that straddles the proper line, it has to be recorded on both properties. If it does turn into a fire lane, it needs to be recorded so that it's protected.
Well, I meant out here because our
Well,
drive
that's
approach.
what he's answering. So there's gonna be 10 feet on either side of this. for these people to put their.
Right,
Looked
right.
at, I need to
Okay.
maintain at least 20. So, but if you don't, if you put in separate approaches, then those, what you show may have to widen.
Okay.
Did you catch that question, Javier?
Yeah, and again, it is typical practice that each property has their own access. But we're not against it being shared, just easements have to be put in place to make sure that access is maintained.
Okay.
Thank you. If there's no additional questions, from the applicant, we'll be compiling each department's comments in a letter that should be out in 2 to 3 weeks from today's. Thank you. With that, we're gonna go ahead and, move along to the second item on the agenda. No, right now. Number 2, we got.
Got any questions about the hydrant layout and stuff? Just give me-
Alright.
So we have, item number 2, which is project review committee number 2023-037. Which is the applicant is proposing a multi-family residential project. Let me go ahead and share my screen here. So what the project is proposing is 3 two-story duplexes consisting of a total of 6 residential units. The subject property is located at 115 North Westwood Street. On APN 240092011. The property is in the RM3 High Density Residential Zone District and has the general plan land use of high density residential. As far as comments from planning, the use is a permitted use. We do meet the minimum units per net acre, which at this time is 10 units per net acre. And that is the minimum. As far as a question I do have for the applicant is, I did not see any private open space for each unit. Which would be a requirement of a minimum of 50 square feet. And as far as the code, it does state that the private open space, the space shall be accessible to only one residential unit by a doorway to a habitable room or hallway. I do see that you do provide some open space, but I wasn't able to kind of verify the private open space for each unit. As far as other comments, the structures do meet setbacks. Does meet our minimum architectural articulation for the units. Any landscaping complying with our section 303. The trash enclosure looks to comply with our development ordinance as far as the design, location, materials. Any fencing proposed for the project to comply with section 300.03. Any signage complying with section 305.08, which multifamily residential projects are allowed 1 building mounted sign and 1 monument sign, with a maximum cumulative sign area of 32 square feet. Pretty much standard from our planning as far as complying with our development standards. And that's gonna be our comment from planning. With that, I'm gonna go ahead and move along with our fire department with Clayton.
Okay, so basically it looks like, the proposal meets the requirements. I just have listed them, just as, what's required there, but complying with the latest applicable codes, fire hydrants placed on distance, no structure greater than 400 feet, hydrants, be in place and accepted prior to any combustibles being brought onto the site. You've addressed the common driveway issue being 150 feet or greater. Required fire apparatus access turnaround is not going to be required based on the proposal. Maintaining the minimum 20-foot roadways and address numbers. So as this proceeds, it looks like what you've proposed meets my requirements.
Thank you, Clayton. Next with engineering with Javier.
For engineering, it's just providing a drive approach with an accessible path around it and providing a street light at the north end of the property. And that's all engineering has.
Thank you. Next with building with James.
Thanks, Oscar. No, it looks like standard construction. So any comments from me would be during plan review. But no comments at this time.
Thank you. Next with Robert.
No comment.
Thank you. Next with Brianna.
No comments.
Thank you. Next with Mark with our police department.
No comments.
Thank you. Any comments from our public works director?
No comments.
Thank you. Yeah, that's gonna be all from staff. Are there any questions from the applicant related to today's application?
No questions. We'll revise that private space, Oscar, and then proceed with getting, full construction drawings submitted to you guys as soon as possible.
Sounds good. Thank you, Logan. And with that, we'll provide these comments to the applicant in 2 to 3 weeks timeframe from today's meeting. I would like to thank the applicant on the proposed development and look forward to getting this finalized.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. And then we have the third item on today's agenda, which is Project Review Committee number 2023-038 for Sports Cuts located at 41 North Main Street. So we do have the application. Revise it? Yeah, they revised it. The application proposes a project for the barbershop, which is a barbershop with a sports lounge. The applicant is requesting a conditional use permit for alcohol sales under a type 48 license. So I'll start with planning's comments. The use would require a approval of a conditional use permit, which will be a public hearing. It is a discretionary process from our city council. There are fees associated with the conditional use permit. So with that conditional use permit fee is $1,164. It will require an environmental assessment, but we can make the preliminary determination that it could be fall under a category of exemption. which the city will still provide a notice of exemption document for a fee of $79. Since the project would require a public hearing, the city can provide a service in mailing the map and labels 500 feet radius from the project for a fee of $26.50, or the applicant can go through their own different service. The location is within the census tract 38.02, which does allow 3 on-sale and 4 off-sale alcohol licenses. Currently, the census tract contains 13 on-sale licenses and 7 off-sale. At the time of the application, there is an over-concentration of alcohol licenses, which in which a letter of public convenience or necessity would be required from our mayor. As far as the development, if there's any changes to the exterior of the building to comply with our downtown design guidelines. Hours of operation, the application did state that it will be open 7 days a week from 9 a.m. to 1 a.m. 9 a.m. to 1 a.m.
Yeah, we just put it because they said to ask whatever, like the.
No, yes, if that information changes, we would like to get the updated hours of operation. Let's say, you are to get approval of a conditional use permit in the future, any modification, to the, business hours would have to be, modified.
Yeah.
Okay. The trash enclosure proposed here on the rear of the property, to making sure we comply with section 300.13 of a development ordinance. It does require the perimeter to have some landscaping, for example.
Is that where the,
Yes, in this area,
that little,
just a standard comment, for trash enclosure. So it looks like you have area here to provide that. Any other comments from staff just in relation to any signage for the business? It is in our downtown retail north of Olive Zone District, which does allow up to 2 square feet of signage per 1 linear feet of frontage. Also, any temporary signs displayed or proposed do require a temporary sign permit. And the temporary sign permit is good for 90 days. That's gonna be all comments from the planning department related to the application. With that, we'll move along with our fire department with Clayton.
Okay, project shall comply with the latest applicable codes. Knox box access is gonna be required, fire extinguishers to be placed to comply with the currently adopted edition of the fire code, address numbers posted on the building. For that rear, exit, there's gonna need to be vehicle impact protection, which is basically bollards. It's in the fire code, the standard for them, the yellow posts, so that somebody can't pull a vehicle up and obstruct that door. For whatever reason.
yeah, because it has some on like the side.
Right, they'll need to be in, they'll need to be in front of the door there, the doors. And then I cannot complete my analysis of this project because what you proposed, where you indicate not a part for that north suite, the fire code refers to something called a fire area, which is the entire building. And so what I'm gonna require before I can provide my final notes to you is an occupant load calculation, independent, done by you, provided by you, showing the lounge or bar area as an A2 occupancy, the barber shop as a B occupancy, and that north suite as its previous occupancy. When it was open, it was what's called an M or a mercantile. It was a store.
Yeah.
And so what I need is for you guys to provide me with your occupant load, so that I can complete my review.
Because right here on that thing, it said 50.
Understand that, but what you're proposing now changes that. Right? It's not what you tell us, it's what the calculation that you provide us based on the code. And what I'm asking for you is independently to have that done so you provide it.
Like what we're thinking?
No, not what you're thinking, what the person you hire what they calculate those occupant loads for each of those, because there's a total cumulative number that I need to know before I can finish my stuff, right? And so, for example, the bar, the A2, that might be at 56 people, right? The barber shop, based on the area, might be 7, but you're showing 20 because you've got 2 at each station. You've got a customer and a barber, and then you've got 4 chairs. And so the code allows for that increase, that change from that 7 to 20. But we need the total calculation and the area, including, because it covers the fire area, it includes that vacant. And so you're not proposing a change in the occupancy to that vacant section. So we're gonna go back to its previous occupancy, which is an M, and that's what the calculation for that area would be on. And so when they submit those numbers to me, then I can complete my evaluation.
So like,
Your
What's-
draftsman
should be able to.
should be able to complete that. It's relatively simple. What I want to avoid is me telling you what the numbers are. I want you to tell me what the numbers are, and then I can give you any notes based on that.
oh, I had a question
Sure.
about the, you said, those lights, I guess the exit lights and, with the warning, I guess, or flood light, is that the exit sign with the 2 lights on the side?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's an emergency light, or you can get standalone, just the double light. So for example, over the exit, you might have the exit with 2 lights, but then on the wall, you wouldn't have the exit, you would just have the 2 bulb lights.
So I'd be all right with the exit on the back door and the exit sign on the front door, and then put the 2.
Well, it depends on
so every exit door has to have a illuminated sign that says exit. Most of the time they come with two bulbs for emergencies, right? But the code also says that throughout the entire building, you have to have emergency lights that would, not just say, hey, here's an exit, but give the person time to get to that exit if inside the lounge, inside the barber shop, you know. So it's just, the code says 1 foot candle of lighting throughout the floor. It's hard to judge that, you know, what we do when we do plan review and inspections is just based off of how many. We can just tell, hey, that's gonna be enough. We can shut the lights off and the lights come on and.
Just make sure it's bright enough to get where.
So a
it's
person
supposed
can
to
be in the dark so they can see, hey, that's a table and chair, I need to go around that. Or they're not just stuck in the dark going, how do I get out of here? I can see the
And a
exit
lot
sign,
of those,
but then I'm tripping and falling and people are tripping and falling over me because we can't see.
and some of those lights have been mounted on each side of the room. Some of those lights have been mounted in the light fixtures itself inside the space, so there's more than one way to.
Yeah, so like these
Just
right
do it.
here, they would create they have these that basically have a battery backup. So when the power goes out, this one just stays on.
Yeah, is here.
No, they have a red light on them. Yeah, so, but yeah, so that emergency lighting is, and a good rule of thumb is in the dark, when you activate the emergency lights, you should be able to see your feet. Should be able to see your toes.
And another thing on the 2-hour rated wall. Cause everywhere I've looked, they say 1 hour,
Right,
and
so
then I've seen that you double back it or something.
there's a standard for a 1 hour or a 2-hour wall.
So the code, when you look at the code between an A2, which would be the bar lounge, and a B, there's a table where it tells us what hour rating that separation needs to be. So it is a 2-hour wall, and I can show you that if you need.
We also need the separation between the north as well.
But there's more than one way to build a 2-hour wall or a 1-hour wall or a 4-hour wall, or there's more than one way to do it. So that each wall has a design that it's gone through that's passed that says, hey, this is how to build a 2-hour wall. So Gary would just need to get on the internet, find the design. There's a code number that'll say, hey, design is 10024, whatever. And then we can look that up and say, yeah, that's correct. And there's a detail, he would put a detail on the side showing a side view on how that wall is built. And like Clayton said too, you know, the wall between, you know, since it is one building, with the north part, even though it's not being used, the code between a B and an M or an A2 and an M, would have to be looked at too.
So those ratings would need to be, those wall ratings would need to be, the wall would have to be constructed to meet that.
And your A2 is always gonna be you're trying to, your A2 is gonna be the most restricted because there's a lot of people in there, people are drinking, the code looks at alcohol as, you know, it just looks at that. It's just safety.
You know what there are, if there are any plans for that north section,
No, he told me that he doesn't have anything going on for it or nothing.
and the only reason is now is kind of the time to discuss it,
Yeah.
because if it was gonna go through an occupancy change, that might affect that occupant load factor, right? If you said, hey, we're gonna change it, it's not gonna be a store, it's gonna be something else, then it requires a code change, then those calculations would be different.
Yeah.
The reason I'm defaulting back to what it was is, one, mercantile is popular on Main Street, it's common. And that's what it was before, so I really I don't wanna just throw something out there and guess and go, oh, we're gonna just give it this, cause this is, you know.
Yeah.
So we're just saying, hey, this is what it was. The potential is most likely that it will be this in the future, so this is what the calculation right now will be based on.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah, cause he kind of just told me like, when I told him I just wanted to do this part, and he was kind of telling me about, hey, you know, if you want to decide to do something with the other side, you know, it's available. But for me, it's just like right now, it's like I'm not, the whole idea of the lounge part is not to be like, oh yeah, it's just this hangout bar. That's not my intention of it. It's just like I wanted to be able to, like, okay, we have a bar if we want to have like a dinner, or someone wants a birthday party or something like that, we could do something like that, you know, and be allowed to do it. Not my idea of it is more like you got to be a member to get, like, hey, I could bring this person, you know what I mean? Like kind of like the Elks or whatever. That's my idea of it. But not like my idea ain't just like having a full blown nightclub or something.
And you can do that, but the code is gonna,
Yeah,
whether you're doing that or not, here's what the code says.
the code says if you have a bar.
Yeah,
and a liquor
yeah, it
license,
is what it
this
is.
is what
Yeah,
it is. It
it's plain
doesn't,
and simple.
yeah. So,
Oh, and the bathroom is it, cause there is the bathroom on that building. It's like, there's a door to the other bathroom.
well, and that brings up another point, because I think a type 48 doesn't allow children to come in and remain in the bar area. So if they're gonna have to access your patrons are gonna have to access the bathroom, how does that work with them?
Yeah.
Going through the bar?
Yeah, that's what
Yeah, if that's not allowed.
Yeah, Clayton, Mark has some of those notes when police have comment.
Perfect.
Yeah, if that's not allowed, then you would have to have another restroom for the barber shop.
Yeah.
But the restroom for the lounge, as it lays out on the plans, would need to be upgraded to be accessible.
would there, like, okay, say if I were to do that bathroom right there and I say, we're in the front, the people cutting hair, what if there's like a rear access to that thing and it's blocked off right there?
Say that again?
Like a rear, like say someone, hey, I want to use the restroom,
And you're in a barber shop.
and you're in the barber shop, and I tell them, hey, you could go through the back, but you have to go through the outside, and there's a rear access to that bathroom.
Believe it or not, as long as there's a path of travel to it, you know, meaning not through the parking lot, asphalt itself, it is allowed.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
there's a sidewalk right on the side of it.
As long as that sidewalk meets the accessibility width.
I don't think that does.
Yeah, it's gotta be at least 4 feet.
Yeah. Yeah, it has to be accessible to anybody who needs to use it.
But I mean, you could put one in the barber shop corner right there where Oscar's mouth was. And, you know, not to say that they couldn't use it from the lounge.
The barber shop has to have a bathroom.
If you have two occupancies, if you're separating it and you have two occupancies and the police department will comment, but if the barber shop can't go through there to use that one, then yeah, that your barber shop would need one.
So if I were to go for the 47, because right now we're in the middle of that process, so we find out on Friday what's going on. So, and then if I were to go with the 47, how does that?
Well, let the police
Yeah,
department finish
yeah.
their comments.
Let's go with Mark with our police department.
Well, good afternoon. So, with regards to the lounge, with the type of license requested, it's my understanding through ABC that that all of the liquor is restricted to the lounge area and it's not to spill over into the barbershop area. And nobody under 21 will be allowed into the bar area from the barbershop or anywhere else. I heard you mention the type 47. I'm just not familiar with the type 47 license. That may change things, but that would have to go through ABC. I may have to do a little bit of research on that, but that's my understanding as of now.
Yeah, the 47 is just saying that we would have to serve some kind of food back there to make it.
And you're talking about putting in a commercial kitchen.
Yeah,
You're talking about the
Yes.
suppression systems. It's, it changes.
Better off building another bathroom.
dramatically. But well, and that, like James was saying, the patrons in the barber shop, based on their age, may not be able to go through the lounge to use that restroom. But there's nothing that says that a restroom on the other side of that wall means the people from the lounge can't come out and use that restroom and then go back in. So potentially that may be a problem solver for you.
Yeah, we just
For
have.
clarification, technically speaking, if it's a type 48, minors are allowed to enter, but they can't remain. So somebody could pass through that area in order to use the restroom, but then they would have to immediately vacate it once they're done. Whereas a 47 is a general eating place that's similar, except minors are allowed to remain because they have substantial sales of food.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional comments from our police department?
I just have one question. Was there any plans for a video security system to be placed in there?
Yes. We're gonna put cameras.
The applicant said yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Moving along with Brianna.
I see the 2-bin enclosure, but that actually needs to be a 3-bin enclosure now for the state mandates.
What's the standard size for that 3-bin enclosure?
It's 28 feet without landscaping. But then you gotta keep it 5 feet off the wall if the building is not sprinklered. So that right there when it worked, could they put one bin on the opposite side?
Could it be like
Yeah.
1 bin and 2-bin? Could it be like a 2-bin enclosure and then one on the north side? Is that something that could be done? Brianna,
Yeah, they don't have to be all in one enclosure. I mean, they can be separate just as long as there's space for all three.
Nice. Thank you.
Hey, this is Dominic Bartow with the police department. Could I ask a quick question?
Yes, of course.
For the applicant, is this, are you I heard earlier that the area is already oversaturated with on sale or on-site consumption. Are you applying for a new liquor license for this area, or do you have an existing?
No, we applied for a new liquor license because there was some available through the drawing or whatever.
The lottery.
Yeah, the lottery. So we applied for one that I guess they had some available in Tulare County, so we applied for it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next with engineering.
For this one, engineering wouldn't have any comments.
Thank you. Any comments from our Public Works Director, Michael?
No comments.
Thank you. Robert, any comments on the project?
No comments.
Thank you. Believe that's all from staff.
Hey, Oscar,
Um,
before you move on, Dave just stepped in my office. And he identified that we need to make sure this property has the proper backflow preventer for the commercial property on the water service. And we can check into that and communicate to the applicant as well.
Thank you. Does the applicant have any additional questions for staff at this time?
Just as far as the oversaturated of licenses, what's that like? What's the process of that?
Yeah, it would go through a public hearing, the application for a conditional use permit. If you were to receive approval from our council, the mayor would have to do what's called a letter of public convenience or necessity as part of the approval. So again, we'll provide more information in the letter outlining that process.
All right.
Okay. Well, thank you for the application. Again, we'll get these comments out to you in 2 to 3 weeks timeframe. I would like to thank you on the application. Hopefully, we're able to get you to the finish line. All right, thank you. With that, that was the last item on today's agenda. We're gonna go ahead and end today's project review committee at 2:31 p.m. Thank you.